Hi, and welcome to the Making It in Academia Sessions podcast. In this episode, I talked to a Chancellor's Fellow at the University of Edinburgh about what his in-house fellowship offers, ways to find mentors, and the two-body problem. Both Carsten and his partner wanted academic careers.
Hi, Carsten. It's great to meet you, and thank you so much for agreeing to this interview. I wonder if I can just start by confirming your career path. What I think happened is that you came from Denmark to do your PhD at the LMB, and you stayed there for your first postdoc. And then you headed off to San Diego for your second postdoc.
Yeah.
And then you joined the University of Edinburgh as a Chancellor's Fellow.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah. So I did my PhD at the LMB and stayed on for a couple of extra years there, and then had my mind set kind of that I wanted to do a rather short postdoc in San Diego. So I already started looking kind of for positions in my second year there, which was quite early, but that was kind of, I had my mind set on that pretty much. And then I moved to Edinburgh.
Okay, and that was in 2015?
Yes,
yeah?
That's correct.
Okay, so you have a Chancellor's Fellowship, which is like an institutional or in-house fellowship. I wonder if you can just explain what that is and what it offers to you.
Yeah, so in Edinburgh there was kind of a university. At the time I applied, there was a couple of years before that as well that they had done university-wide Chancellor's Fellowships. So it was with the mindset that the university wanted to recruit their new faculty to some extent, and so they did that. And so the year I was recruited was also part of this kind of university-wide recruitment. When I got it offered, I was still able to stay for another year to finish up my paper in my postdoc lab. And so the Chancellor's Fellowship is a research fellowship, so it's mainly kind of almost teaching, like protected from teaching. That's not what we are assessed on. That's not why we were recruited. And it comes with salary for 5 years, one PhD student, and then in total 30,000 for consumables. So as you can see, it's not a lot of consumable monies because we also charge to actually use equipment and that kind of stuff. That's a little bit center specific, but in the center that I was recruited, we had to kind of pay for usage of things. So yeah, that's kind of the layout of the Chancellor's Fellowship.
And what kind of support do they give you apart from that equipment? Is there any kind of input in terms of developing yourself, a mentor, encouraging you to learn new skills? Or
so there are both like career development workshops and leaderships workshops, and you also affiliated with a mentor that can both within your institute, and there's also other mentor schemes. And of course some of these works really well and some don't work as well, and it's definitely something that do try and seek out different types of mentors wherever you go, pretty much different levels, both people that are just a little bit more senior than you, and also some that are much more senior that maybe know the kind of the politics and the strategy of the university as such, and maybe even somebody completely external from the university. I got one for the Academy of Medical Sciences, an external one, who has been very helpful in my kind of process. They're also very good at, when I was recruited, there was this kind of cohort building within the Chancellor's Fellowship in Edinburgh, and that's really one thing that has worked extremely well. And I still kind of a little bit puzzled by how well that part has worked, that it's very kind of collaborative spirit. It's not competitive among Chancellor's Fellows here, and that's something that I've been quite surprised by actually, but very pleasantly surprised that they definitely got that part really right.
That's great. So I was interested about the mentor you got through the Academy of Medical Sciences. Is that something you get as for being a member of the professional body, or?
That was down to yet another, you could say, unsuccessful grant application. This was Academy of Medical Science that had this springboard, which I think they still are running. I think there's many more of those ones, or at least recently have been given out than I was not awarded one, but I got kind of through the shortlisting process, and then we could be hooked up with an external mentor, and I took advantage of that, and that was really helpful in my process, and that's somebody I'm still in contact with, even though she has left the UK. But
I love the way you make success from something that wasn't what you wanted. I worked with another postdoc who got an industrial collaborator from an interview where she failed to get the job with the company. She still got the collaboration. So did Edinburgh change anything because of the pandemic? I mean, your 5 years was going to end in 2020, right in the middle of everything.
Yeah. So it comes with a 5-year contract, and then there's kind of assessment after 3 or 4 years, and that includes your head of college and head of research, and the ESAT head was the lead of the Edinburgh Scientific Academy training program, and also the head of my institute, and an external expert within your field. And so I was up for my first one in late 2019, and was then told, you haven't completely ticked all the boxes, so why don't you come back next year? And then a pandemic with 2 nursery kids running around my legs the following year, then I was granted it. And they clearly took that into account, that they didn't really expect. But what I was told was I had to focus more in my paperwork, pretty much. So it's not that they actually expected more outputs. And what they're really looking for was outputs that is funds, so money, clearly, and also external fellowships if possible, and papers. So those are the 2 main parts they're looking for. And of course, there's also, you need to be able to have fulfilled 1 PhD student, like to fulfill, and then also citizenship, so doing different parts. But without the paper and being able to bring money in, the 2 last bits in reality don't really do it for you. They're necessary, and they're clearly something that you have to do and you should do, but it is the 2 first things that are really important. And yes, it's true. Also, for this the pandemic, so Edinburgh had a recent drive where they recruited, but only internally, so from early career researchers within Edinburgh. So there was a call out, but it was only recruitment within internal. And so there were Chancellor's Fellows again appointed last year, but only within Edinburgh, or from Edinburgh.
Okay. But do you think the scheme will go forward in the future for externals as well?
So that's a good question. I'm not completely, but it's something I could, of course, kind of look into. I'm not. I think it'll probably be much more strategic and not across all departments. That's something that's become very clear, that's also how they've done it more recently. It's not university-wide, but like it can be machine learning, or it can be engineering, or it can be any other kind of aspects or departments where they can see a need for it more than widespread. But I think something similar is probably going to continue.
So you said that you were already thinking about the next step when you were in San Diego. Was that next step always going to be an in-house fellowship, or were you considering other routes to getting a permanent position?
Yeah, I was considering all kind of routes. So at the time, my current wife was a lecturer in Toronto, and that's a 4.5-hour flight between Toronto and San Diego. So that's about there. So we had the quite common 2-body problem that we needed to kind of get sorted out sooner rather than later. So at the time, I kind of got my documents together and applied for quite a senior post in Toronto, and never heard back. But then at the same time, these Chancellor's Fellowship came up in Edinburgh, and it was just advertisement. It was not because I knew that they were actually going. It was just because they came up at the same time as I was applying for, as I was applying for the other thing, and we could both apply for these posts here. So therefore, we both applied. I ended up getting one, but she didn't. But she then got something at Liverpool in Glasgow, and she's also now converted that to an open-ended contract. So this is really, it's about being flexible, but also getting the timing right and being lucky. Like, no doubt, luck does carry a lot here.
Gosh, I hadn't realized you had the whole dual career problem as well. That's another issue for people, but interesting. You both applied for Edinburgh. One of you gets it and one of you gets a job in, or a similar position in Glasgow. So
Yeah, in Glasgow,
yeah, really good. Well, congratulations to you both.
Thank you.
Thanks for sticking with us despite the occasional dip in sound quality. In-house fellowships, given the numbers recruited at the same time, can offer a solution to the two-body problem. When we ran this event 2 years ago, we met an in-house fellow from the University of Leeds who had also applied with his partner. Stay listening to hear Carsten's tips on when to apply for your first independent position and how to build your group.
So you've explained quite a bit how Chancellor's Fellows can secure tenure. You've got to have the outputs, you've got to bring in money, and then the two kind of less important issues of academic service and getting your PhD student through. Mm-hmm. I just wondered how, you said it wasn't competitive, or at least your cohort isn't competitive, but is it that do all Chancellor's Fellows go on to get tenure, or is there a limit to how many get jobs?
So I think it's quite a fair program. So there are some that don't, but most they do. But I think it's also fair to say that there might be a difference between the first couple cohorts that went through and the kind of latest cohorts, that most of us, or at least some of us, me included, had to go out for like a second round of this interview process. I think they genuinely actually do want us to succeed. It's not a matter of wanting to kick us out. They have also spent to some extent their salary on us, so they have kind of wanted us to stay here. So they are invested both financially, but also being part of it. Not to say there are people that are shown the door, and they of course will tell you other things. This is my experience with it. Yes, it's not perfect, but I don't think many things are perfect. But I think I have been pretty fairly treated, even though, of course, when I was told I had to go out for a second round, I was maybe not the most happy one jumping around. But when it was, in hindsight, probably just to get it more focused, my application process, then that was kind of okay. Also, like it also has to be said that there was quite a few people that applied for external fellowships during this process as well. And that, of course, also then, so this thing of an in-house fellowship compared to an external one, it's still possible to apply for the external ones. And so, yeah. And of course, if you come an external one, then you also have, you have more weight to some extent, and you have more funds to do your science with.
Okay. Did you ever apply for external fellowship?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I applied twice to Welcome to Oxford Sunnydale, and got longlisted both times, but didn't get it. You grow thick skin. That's just but it still stings. But that's just that's just how it is. It is competitive to get these things. And one kind of advice is like applying for these things, and that's probably something that I haven't really completely especially in the beginning, realized how much time it actually does to get this really sorted out in a nice state. And do use the timing that you have. If you have something big that's just come out, don't wait. Go. You can always apply for something later. Don't think you're not ready. It's all about, the most important thing is to get the timing right of your things. And if you're fresh with a big something coming out, then that's the time where you should try and push.
That's a really good tip. So often you see people who are afraid and, I'm not sure I'm ready yet, but what you're saying. So when you've got something big, your hot property, go for it then. Yeah. So you said that with the fellowship, the Chancellor's Fellowship, you've got one PhD student. But when I look at your website, there are quite a few in your group now. So how did you go about building numbers?
Yeah, so that's of course also big, and that's probably where I have been very successful. Like, and that's something I'm also proud of. That I am. It's a lab that quite a lot of PhD students want to come to. So there are different PhD programs. There are both one person who's been external or self-funded, but they're also like um, MSc or Wellcome Trust funded PhD programs within the university. But those are also hugely competitive among PIs teams within the university, and that's pretty much down to where the students want to go, and that's clearly also because the first PhD student I was lucky to recruit. She was very both she was very skillful and very helpful to other people, and so she really sets kind of the standard working in the lab, and that's something that is so important to get the first one or two hires right. And a lot of that is down to gut feeling and luck. And that's just, yeah, so that's clearly where this has come from. And that is probably where I've been most successful, is being able to recruit these PhD students. But it's also part of the job that I really enjoy doing. And I enjoy having really active second supervisors who come with other skill sets and be very collaborative. So that really has allowed me to expand my research as well into different techniques that I'm not an expert on different model organisms and that kind of stuff. So that's true. That's where most of this come from. And yeah, looking into different funding opportunities and possibilities of getting on PhD programs and being on supervisor teams. Yeah.
So success has bred success for you. So you've already been really honest, sharing the fact that the job at Toronto didn't work out, the Henry Dale fellowships didn't work out, and yet here you are smiling and successful and moving forward. How did you develop that thick skin? Any kind of tips of how to get over the things that go wrong?
Well, I think I realized that I'm very lucky, and I'm in a situation that is like I have had this chance fellowship, and I've been on an open-ended contract, so I'm in a much better situation that most other people are in. And yes, it is bloody annoying to get these rejections, and just realizing that there are many more rejections around than there are acceptance, and so yeah, taking that into account, it's not saying that it doesn't sting when you get rejections. Absolutely, that stings. That stings a lot. But somehow, I think I've become better at kind of not thinking about how much it hurts a week later. Yes, it is okay. It hurts for a couple of days. That has to happen. And then try to use at least parts of those applications going forward. Not saying that I didn't get the Wellcome Trust is probably something, that momentum that I probably would have got there is probably something that I'm going to carry with me the rest of my career. I don't think that's impossible, that's probably true. But then other things that come through, and I've been lucky with other things. And for instance, the students who have been happy to work with me, those are things that have meant that we have been able to do parts of those projects anyway. It doesn't look like it's a huge kind of on the CV, like a huge pot of money that has come in, but I'm still able to do most of the science anyway. So that's probably how I look at it. And just, I know one is kind of, I've been told you're not really allowed to be opportunistic, but I kind of disagree with that, even though I've been told it by several kind of senior people. And then you look around and you see senior people who are not opportunistic themselves. But you have to take the opportunities that are there. For me, it's kind of, if you think about what just having a long-term strategy plan, and I also know you have to write visions, that kind of stuff, and it's okay to have a vision for 5 years, but if you don't have any money or any personnel or any equipment to do that, to carry out that vision or work towards that vision, then it becomes this kind of like not reality. So therefore, like, you need to work with what you have and go in the direction you want with your research. But like a 10-year-long vision for me is not. I don't feel as productive. I know other people have told me otherwise, and other people think otherwise. But I think you need to be pragmatic about the possibilities you have and the realities as well.
Sounds like though you have managed to achieve some of your things. It's just in a different way from the way you expected.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. It's probably been many more applications that I thought I was going to do instead of just these one or two big ones that would have come through, and you could focus on your research instead. And that's true. That's absolutely. And it would have been helpful not to have to do all these other bits and bobs, but yeah. That's okay. That's part of learning and part of research, I think.
Yeah, well, you've got so much that you can offer people when you come back in January. It'd be great to see you at the Q&A session. I'm guessing you can take questions about dual career working, about going for money, writing grants, the importance of managing your PhD students and managing to attract good ones so that you can get your work done.
Absolutely.
So thanks a lot, Carsten, and we'll see you in January.
Some postdocs tell us they don't like PIs talking about luck, but Carsten really made his by starting to look for opportunities early in his postdoc and by realizing the importance of making good hires. Appreciating his good fortune seems to have made Carsten more resilient when he gets rejections. If you want to put your own questions to Carsten on the 13th of January, register for the recently appointed PI session. You'll find the link to do so below this podcast or in Handshake. That's it from me, Sally Todd, for today. If you like what you heard, head over to our YouTube channel and subscribe.